Hello all. This week we're going to be talking about, as it says there, possible structures for the persuasive research essay. But before we get to that, I wanted to just clear up some confusion, if there is any, about the due dates on some of your things. Let's see. So somebody emailed me and pointed out correctly that I screwed up the due dates from last week. So technically, this Ethos Pathos Logos blog, which already had its problems because I broke copyright, sorry about that, is due actually this Friday, as well as the reading blog from last week is due this Friday. They should have been due last Friday, but when I put them in the calendar, I messed up the date. It's not too big of a deal. I go ahead. I won't grade them until this Friday because technically that's what it says. But if you saved them for this week, just know that you're going to have to do so these two things plus the reading blog for this week and the fallacies blog for this week, plus a quiz that I haven't made yet that I'll make tomorrow. So I mean that's a lot to do this week, but it's certainly doable. It's not too hard. So on to the possible structures for the persuasive research essay. This one's a really tricky one. It's got a lot of different possibilities, and so we're going to look at 3 different options for this essay. And know up front that you can also do a combination of any of these too. I mean, if you like the option 1 plus option 3, you can do that. You know, just kind of use your discretion. What's really going to dictate which structure you pick for this essay is your audience. Now, I want you to include on your essay in the top right corner, right underneath your tag that you've been putting on all your essays, who your chosen audience is for this essay. Okay, and part of what I'm going to grade for this essay is how well you address that chosen audience. Okay, so your chosen audience should dictate kind of which structure you pick. So the first structure that I want to talk about is probably the most basic one. It's this one here. I know that's a lot of things going on, but let's just slowly go over each one of them. I've tried to kind of build off of the last essay's shapes, sort of, so that we can have some sort of continuity in this, and so that we don't have to be as confused. But let's just go over each one of these parts again. The first thing you start off up here with is an introduction to the topic. This is your, for lack of a better term, your sexy introduction to the topic. Okay, so remember that this is different than the next one, which is the introduction to the argument with a thesis. This is just, let us know what you're actually interested in writing about. Give us an idea of where we're going. If you're trying to persuade your dad to pay your way to study abroad in Costa Rica, show us a nice picture of Costa Rica, or something. Give us an introduction to the topic before you actually get down to your argument. Okay. So the second part is, as I've already mentioned, the introduction to the argument with a thesis. Okay, this is where you actually say, okay, so I've mentioned what the topic was above, this is what I actually think about it. Okay, now the thesis statement is similar to the thesis statement that you did last time. The thesis statement this time will be a claim with a few reasons. So, for instance, if we're going with the study abroad one again, Dad, I think you should pay my way to Costa Rica for the study abroad because it will offer educational experiences that I won't be able to get to stateside. I'm going to be doing service, which you always emphasized was important, and I should be able to travel in my semi-formidable years, or something like that. So that was basically a claim with reasons, and that the same thing you need to do for your thesis with whatever it is. So if it's, oftentimes I see these screwed up, and they're just the most common thing that I see screwed up on these essays for the thesis statement is that they're usually just a claim. So it'll say something like, I think I used this example last week, but Star Wars is the greatest film ever created, or something like that. That's arguable. That's a good place to start, but it also has to have those reasons, and those reasons could be, you could go into ticket sales or into the technology of the time, it exceeded that, or you could go into the story itself, however you want to actually do that. So, okay, but just make sure you have your thesis has both parts, the claim and the reasons. Okay. Now, so after you've introduced your thesis, then you have these paragraphs where you're actually explicating those reasons. Okay. So argument one could also read reason one, and so whatever you kind of refer to up here is going to be repeated and explicated in more detail down here. Okay, so for each one of those reasons that you mentioned here, we have a section for it down here. Okay, now this does look like the 5-paragraph essay. I think it actually works particularly well for this essay, but that should look familiar to some of you. Okay, so after you've kind of laid out your entire argument, all three of your arguments here, you have what's called a rebuttal section. Now, the rebuttal section is where you go and you attack your opposition's best claim. Okay, whatever it is, whatever you think they are going to say against what you're trying to argue, whatever their best idea is, you attack that directly and say, this is why that's actually wrong. Okay, so the rebuttal section, I think one of the things that people often mess up on the rebuttal section is that they don't do research on it. Find people saying exactly, find people disagreeing with you. If it's an arguable topic, there's going to be people who disagree with you. Okay. And then the next bit is the proposal. Okay, now, one thing that I really want to push on these essays is that you're just not arguing for argument's sake. I want you to actually propose a way for this to change. Whatever it is you're discussing, propose a way for it to get better. Okay? So, and the more detailed you can be with that, the better. So let's go back to the Costa Rica example. You could say something like, I know money was tight this year, but I think you could take it out of your pension or something. I don't know. That's a horrible thing. Don't ever ask your parents to do that. But anyway, this is where you go in and actually propose something that's specific that will change the problem that you've found as you've researched this essay. Okay. Now, and then you conclude pretty much exactly the way you kind of concluded your last essay, you with a conclusion and a forecast. Okay. And now the forecast, I think, should specifically relate to the proposal. So you say something like, if you allowed me to go to this, and if you paid for it using your pension or whatever you're suggesting, it will create a more rounded person or something like that. And in the future, I will tell my children about my trip to Costa Rica or something like that. But where you take the forecasting part of this is basically where you take the proposal and speculate if this was to be implemented, what would change. Okay. So those are the basic ideas. Now I'm going to look at two other possible structures, and I'm going to talk. The rest of these are going to be slightly truncated because I've already kind of explained all these things. So hopefully you've taken notes on this slide. I'm going to move on to some other ones to discuss it. Okay. So here's the next one. Now, just a second. Oh, whoops. Okay, here's the other option that you have here. Now, I would suggest using this structure if you know there's going to be a lot of pushback from your audience on whatever your topic or your proposal is. Okay, and hopefully that'll become relevant or make sense why in just a second. Okay, so you start off exactly the same. You introduce your topic with some sort of sexy introduction that's going to keep your reader reading. Okay, and then you introduce your argument with your thesis. The thesis should look similar or look exactly the same as we talked about before, where you actually have the claim with reasons. Now this is where it gets a little bit different. If you'll notice, what I've done is I've included the rebuttal at the end of each one of these reason or argument sections. Okay, this is why I said what I said before. This is when you know people are going to disagree with what you're talking about, and want to discuss it a little bit differently. This works really well. Okay. It just kind of, once again, depends on what your audience is going to say with it. So notice as well, so you because you have a little rebuttal section in each one of these argument sections, you don't have a longer, bigger argument section down below. This essay, I think, this essay type, it makes for a more smooth argument. You don't all of a sudden jump ship and start talking about something else. you know, when you, for the rebuttal section, it feels like it's more integrated into the actual essay itself. But sometimes it doesn't work as well. Once again, you've got to let your audience dictate which structure you pick. Okay. Okay, and here's a third option for you. And what I've done here is I've moved the proposal, which was right after the major rebuttal here, up to the part here. Now, I think this is done when the proposal is going to be pretty obvious to the reader, or you would move the proposal up if you know that they're going to have trouble buying your proposal. Okay, and what ends up happening is if you introduce the proposal early, each one of these arguments will actually kind of work as fuel for that proposal. It will seem less esoteric, and instead of having a below, it won't seem like a surprise. But also these arguments will act as I already said, as reasons why the proposal should work. Again, you got to let your audience dictate which one will work the best. Okay. Another one to actually think about that I didn't make a slide for, but I was just thinking about as I was reading these other ones. So I just so you know, I flipped back to the first one that we talked about, the basic structure. Something, if you know that your audience is going to be really against what you're talking about the entire time, you can actually delay talking about your thesis. Okay, you can delay your thesis until the end. And if it was me, I would just move this thesis down with this proposal. Okay, now this is, once again, if you know that your audience is going to be really upset with what you're actually trying to propose, it's best to delay the thesis so that you can get them all on the same page. What ends up being here in the argument sections or the reason sections is you end up talking about more things that you agree with than you disagree with your audience. And then by the time you get there, you say, okay, you've got a lot of good points, but this is why my solution is the best. By the time you get down to the proposal section. So any of these four would actually work. I actually think the last one I just talked about is the most complicated one, but any of these are actually really doable. This is I think the most basic form. Again, this is for if you know that your audience is going to have trouble with each one of your proposed arguments or your proposed reasons. And this one's when you know that the proposal is going to need a lot of backing. So gauge what you think your audience is going to need, and then pick the appropriate topic here. One more thing before I go. Let's go ahead and bring this up. Okay. So this week, I added an assignment that wasn't originally on the proposal or on the assignment description. It's not difficult, but I think it'll be very good for us all. It's this fallacy blog. It's really simple if you go to it. What I'm asking you to do is watch a Colbert video and read the fallacy handout, which you were already meant to read anyway. So if you watch the video and read the fallacies handout, what I want you to do is find one fallacy in the Colbert video. There's literally dozens, so don't worry about running out of them. Yeah, try not to repeat your peers in this, but it should be good, and it should be fun. It's a pretty funny video. As you watch it, be sure that you're watching both Stephen Colbert and the person he's interviewing for specific fallacies, because they're both spouting them off. So, okay, that's it for this week. Good luck on these essays. If you have any questions, drop me an email at russ.beck@usu.edu. That's the easiest and quickest way to get a hold of me. I hope you're well again. Okay, bye.